By the late 1970s, Robert Monroe recognized a significant gap in his out-of-body research. While spiritual theories about the afterlife were abundant, the academic and scientific communities lacked empirical, geographical data detailing what actually happened after a person died. Personal circumstances made finding this information a priority. Monroe chose to treat the afterlife as a measurable geographic space, a territory that could be surveyed with the same rigor as any physical landscape, providing him with a kind of personal death insurance. To map the territory, he initiated a systematic inventory of 4 specific deceased colleagues, including his own father, an engineer named Charlie, a pilot named Agnew, and a doctor named Dick. Notably, none of these men held rigid post-mortem belief systems. Selecting subjects without preconceived spiritual notions was a deliberate choice. Without strong beliefs to generate personal illusions, their current locations would provide the most objective, unfiltered data on the architecture of the realm. The first coordinates led to Charlie's last known location. Monroe arrived at a coastal cabin, but found the environment trapped in an eerie stillness. The ocean was completely motionless, the sky static, and Charlie was entirely absent. Despite the lack of motion, the environment felt physically substantial. Monroe could feel the solid pressure of sand beneath his bare feet and chew the living fibers of a blade of grass plucked from the ground. Subsequent visits yielded the same result. He located the rough, concrete-walled recovery room where his father had last stayed, and a weathered wooden rigging platform belonging to Agnew. Both locations were highly detailed, yet completely abandoned. These were solid constructs, yet they were currently empty. The men had moved on, leaving behind these personalized environments and raising the question of where the system ultimately directs its occupants. Tracking his friend Dick, a doctor, marked a distinct shift in the investigation. Moving away from isolated outposts, Monroe arrived at a populated, active hub. The location presented as an ordinary professional space. It was a realistic doctor's waiting room, complete with old magazines on coffee tables and occupants dressed in standard business suits. 2 of the men in the room noticed Monroe still carried a living physical body. They explained that Dick had not created this environment. It was already fully formed when they arrived. The room appeared to have a specific function. It served to ease the transition for medical professionals by allowing them to wake up in a familiar, calming setting. The existence of this waiting room suggests a level of pre-existing design. It is a collective artifact, suggesting that parts of the afterlife are constructed independently of the individuals who arrive there. Stepping out of the waiting room, Monroe followed a path into an expansive forest. The sensory data intensified, presenting the smell of blooming trees, the crunch of dirt underfoot, and a chorus of unfamiliar birdsong. He conducted a quick sensory test to verify the physical reality of the space. When an orange parrot swooped down and left a warm dropping in his hand, Monroe noted the mundane, biological proof of the environment's solidity. As he moved deeper into the woods, the sheer variety of life, strange trees and exotic birds, began to look like a cumulative creation. It appeared to be an ecosystem built from the overlapping thoughts of the countless humans who had passed this way before. The woods eventually gave way to a vast, highly organized landscape. Fountains and flowering shrubs lined gravel paths that stretched toward the horizon, a territory Monroe recognized as the park. The scale of the architecture and the consistency of the sensory details suggested a clear conclusion. This was not a fleeting projection, but an objectively real and maintained territory. As he approached a nearby bench, a woman rose to greet him. He took her offered hand, feeling the solid weight of her grip, and recognized her from a visit years prior. She welcomed him back as Ashaneen. The name resonates with a deep personal familiarity. It is a name Monroe has not heard in this life, yet he knows instantly it belongs to him. A larger context began to surface. The woman was Nevisse, and in an era stretching back before recorded history, she had been his mate. She explained their connection through the concept of the I there. This suggests that current human identities are temporary fragments of much older, continuous consciousnesses that eventually reunite. Within this environment, The adaptation to death involves the shedding of a recent earthly identity and the restoration of this more complete ancient self. This diagram illustrates the park's role as a universal triage center. According to Nevisse, it was built by an ancient civilization to process the arrival of the newly dead and calm them before they move onward. The hub is staffed by volunteers, consciousnesses who choose to stay and guide newcomers to their next destination, regardless of their past earthly beliefs. Before he departed, Nevisse gave Monroe a directive. He was to return to the physical world, bring the newly dead to the park, and teach others this mapping process. She left him with an ancient farewell, Tana Sen. Monroe had completed his inventory. He had found the data he sought, evidence that the territory beyond death operates as a benevolent and established geographical system.